Hello YouTube, this is DrawingKit1313, and today I have another very interesting program for you that I've been working on for quite some time now. It's a game and it's called LineField, as you can see right there, LineField. And yeah, I spent a lot of time on this and I've finally finished and think it's good enough to show you guys. So, first things first, I'm going to run it so that you guys can see what it does. And then I'm going to explain, where you can get the source code and the game as well so that you can play it yourself. And then after that, I'm going to go over a little bit of how it works. So let's go ahead and play it. So it starts out that you're in, this little menu with some ASCII art and whatnot. And you can use the up and down arrow keys to select the menus. You can see right there. When you find the menu that you want to press, you press enter. So let's go to info. It's a game coded by me, DrawingKit1313, using Dev C++. You can see that right there in the corner. It's based on an internet game called CubeField. And then it kind of gives you directions and whatnot. Now you can press O to play the original game, so exit out of that program, and then it'll go ahead and bring you to the original game. You can see it right here. Here's the original game. The way that mine works is fairly simple, similar. The only difference is, it's not 3D and there's no graphics to it. It's just, strictly console, because that's all I know how to do. So, and then, once you run into something, you die. All right. So another option that you have, let's go back in, go to info, is, it's made by me, DrawingKit1313, so I have the option to go to my YouTube channel. So when you press Y, it again exits out and goes to my channel. See? Pretty awesome. And then, finally, you have start game and all that. So let's go ahead and let's start game. So you're in this little field, and a whole bunch of lines are randomly generated. Everything's random. There's no set path that you can take or whatever. It's all random, and you have to, pretty much use the left and right arrow keys to kind of dodge the arrows or the lines. Now, every few seconds, it's going to change colors as well as speed up a little bit. Now, there is a chance, and it actually just happened right there, that it changes to the same color that it was before. And I don't know, I might do that before I put up the download, but it's not really that big of a deal. Now, if it's a dark color like this green, it's a pretty dark color, so against a black background, it doesn't look all that good. So I have it where if it's a dark color, the background turns white. So you can see it all right there, and you have to avoid it. Now, when you run into one of these, game over, and then it detects if you have a high score. It keeps up to 10 high scores, and does all that fun stuff. But again, I'll explain that later. So you enter in your name. I have caps lock on. There we go. Press enter, and it saves it to the high scores. So you can see scores, and it has number one on number 1. So if we were to play it again, let's say that we got a lower score than that. So I only got 575 at this time. Enter my name, and again, see it's on the bottom right there. Now you have a few options here. You could either go back to the main menu. You could also get into the scores through that. You can delete certain scores. Let's say I wanted to delete the first one. Delete 1. There we go. Deletes it. And then if I wanted to clear all scores, I can clear it. But I don't want to do that right now, so we're not going to do that. I'm going to go back to the main menu. When you press quit, it saves the scores, and what it's actually doing is it's saving it to a DAT file. So when you look, you have the application right there, and then you have linefield.dat. That's right there. So all the scores are kept in here, so you can see over here is where my score is. Now usually you won't be able to open this up with Notepad unless you tell your computer to open up DAT files with Notepad, but whatever. So now in order to get this game, I'm going to have a link in the description to the MediaFire link that you have. It's going to contain a zip file, a zip archive, and in that zip archive, I'm going to have a few things. One, I'm going to have the dev file that is associated with it. That way, it's the project and all that. I'm also going to have the game.h and the menus.h, which are two separate classes that I'm using to program it, because they contain part of the code. This one contains all the games. This one contains all the menus. And then we have the main source code right here, the CPP file, which opens up with Notepad as well. And you also have this makefile.win. I think that's necessary for compiling it in Dev C++. And then also inside this folder that I'll have is O file, and the application I'm going to upload separately. This is for any of you that don't trust me for whatever reason and think that the application is a virus. It's really not. I have all the source code right here if you want to look through it. But some people aren't comfortable with downloading applications from a random source online, and I understand that, so I'm going to put it up as a separate download. If you want to download it, go ahead. There's no virus, but if you don't want to download, don't download it. So that will be separate, and both links will be in the description of this video. So now that I have that out of the way, we're going to go over a little bit of how it works. Alright, so if you are not interested in how this works and you just want to play the game, exit out of the video, go to the download the application and play it. Alright, but if you do want to know how it works, then stay tuned. I'm going to explain it for you right now. So I have a few things being declared right here in the beginning of the program. Right here at the beginning of the actual program. We have two vectors. A vector is just a group of whatever type of variable that you have. So I have a vector of ints, which are integers that store whole number values. That could be either negative or positive. So that stores all of these scores. And when your program starts out, it starts out as 10 values of 0. And that's how it keeps track. Alright, I can only keep 10 values. Alright, so that's what it starts out as. You also have a vector of, you also have a vector of strings right here that stores all the names that go with the scores, and it starts out as 10 values of just a blank space. These are iterators. They're used later on in the program. You have some bools, which is how I determine which menu is showing and when the game starts and when the game ends and all that. A bool is pretty much a variable that can hold two values, either true or false. If the bool value is true, then it'll run. If it's not true, then it won't run. Now, you have a few ints that are used for various things that I'll probably go over later. You have more ints, you have strings, which are just temporary things when I use with calculating and all that, and then you have characters. Alright? When the program first starts up, it loads the scores from the dat file. This loads scores, this is a function that I made right here, load scores. So if we scroll up, we can see void load scores. Alright, so we have load scores right there. And it takes three arguments, a vector string, vector of ints, and an integer value. This integer value is number of scores, vector is scores, and another vector is names. And this and symbol means that it takes the actual value and it copies it from the actual program into the function. So it's actually using the same vector and the same integer right here. So it just kind of edits the values. Now when it starts out, it clears the two vectors so that there's nothing inside it. It reassigns the values of spaces and zeros. And then it goes through each line of the file. And when it's going through a file, I'll open up the file for you. Let's go here. Programming, C++, LineField, and LineField.dat. So you can see that when a score is saved, I have it outputting as name, : to indicate that it's a new score. And then I have a the name, and then I have the score. Alright, so basically it goes through each line of the file, and when it finds a line that is equal to name, it goes to the next line down, go to line, file, 1 plus, whatever it just was. It gets that file name, that's that, and it puts it into an integer, or not an integer, but a string value. Puts it into there and inserts it into the vector or the group of names. Alright, so that's what it's doing right there. And then it deletes the last one. That way it keeps, a value of 10. It keeps 10 different values. That way it doesn't go anywhere over 10. And then it does the same with the scores. It just goes to the next line down. So the line that name was on plus 2. And then it closes the files. And it also keeps track of the number of scores. If there is no file, as you can see I have right here, if the file is open, now if the file is not open, or else, meaning there is no file there, it pretty much just creates the file for you. So if there's no file there, it creates a file for you. Alright, now moving on into the program, this is where everything starts, while everything is equal to true or not equal to false. This is the menu screen. Select menu.main menu. And this is a class that I made under menus.h. You can see the main menu is right here. We have the ASCII art right here, just outputted plain. And then you have the menus. The way that it is highlighted is it basically just changes the color of the text that is there. So start game has its own color, a value of SG color, start game color. And then same with scores, which I actually have as stats because I previously had it entered as stats. But stats is an even number, or no, stats is an odd number. and I need it to be even so that everything can be centered, so I changed it to scores because that's an even number. OCD, I know. And then info has a separate color and all that. Now basically, you have a getch, which just it waits for user input. So when you press a button, it goes to a switch statement. So case 80, and that is if the up arrow is pressed. So if the up arrow is pressed and start game color, or no, sorry, the case 80 is a down arrow. All right, so case 80, that's the actual keyboard code value for down arrow in this programming language. If the start game color is equal to 240, it'll go ahead and make stats color equal to 240 and reset SG color. Now, in color codes and all that, 240 is basically a white background with black text. So it kind of inverts it, and that's how you see the everything kind of inverted here. So basically, when you press the down key, start game color is reset to 7, which is the grayish color that you see right there, and scores color is equal to 240, and that's how it works. So it's pretty simple that way. Now, same with the up arrow. So if you press up arrow, then it does the opposite. Now, case 13, that is the key code for enter. So if enter is pressed and start game color is highlighted, menu is equal to false and game is equal to true. So it starts the game. If stats color is equal, then stats is equal to true. And pretty simple as that. All right. And then we move on to the game. All right. So this is pretty much the whole game right here. The way that I have the game working is each column is individually operated. So let me go ahead and run the program right here. We start game. You can see that there are different columns right here, and they're kind of stored separately. So this column is separate, this column is separate, this column is separate, and so on and so on. There are 20 columns. And yeah, I know I lost. And basically, each column is stored separately, and it's stored in what is known as a struct. A struct is a group of these variables right here. Now I have vectors storing each column. So each separate vector stores the column that is in it. So basically what I have here is I have a group of characters. And that is the field for you. So it starts out as having 20 different vectors. All right, column, and there's 20 different possible values that it can be. Now when it first starts off, I do game initialize the field, which just sets it clears all the columns. It goes through every single one, clears it, and then it pushes back 30 values of space so that you start out in a blank field and you don't start out with a line right in your face and you're all ready to lose. So basically just creates a blank field. Now when it generates a random number between 1 and 100. If that value that it generates is either a 20, a 40, a 60, an 80, or 100, it'll go ahead and insert a underscore, which is what I have the lines as, and it'll insert that in the vector. And by the way, it's going through this for each of the 20 vectors, which is what this does. So it repeats this process 20 times, and based upon the value of I, determines which column it works with. If it's not any of those numbers, it inserts a space. Simple as that. When it outputs the last one first. And this is very complicated right here, I know. But it outputs the last one first. Alright, because you can see that output is equal to the column.size, which returns how many numbers are inside that column. It subtracts one from it to get the last value of that column, and it outputs that one first. So it sees out column at output. The next time it goes through, because it outputs this 23 times, because that's how tall the columns are. So you have your x-axis, that would be the y-axis, kind of, I guess. And it'll output the last one first, and then it'll output the second to last one, and then it'll output the third to last one, and so on and so forth. So that's why I have output decreasing. So the next time this runs through, it'll output at one less than that. So that's how am I going to explain this? So if it's outputting the last one first and you insert another value at the beginning, which is what this does, you insert another value at the end, actually, that makes everything be pushed down once, because the next time that is outputted, it's the last one first, and then the one that was before that is actually the second to last one. So that's how everything looks like it's moving towards you. And this I have where the ship is. I'll go over that in a little bit. And then this detects collision. So if the space that the spaceship is at, if that area that it's in contains an underscore or a barrier, game equals false, and you lose. And that's pretty much how that all works. It's very difficult to explain it because I made this actually a while ago. And yeah. So now to detect when you're using the left and right arrow keys, that's where these come in. This is similar to the get statements that were used in the menus. Get detects user input. The only difference is this actually pauses the program until it gets input. This does not pause the program at all. It'll go through the program. It'll say, has the left key been pressed? No. Okay, just keep going through. But if it has been pressed, then spaceship is decreased by 1, and that detects or determines which column the spaceship is outputted at. When the game equals false, it detects whether or not you have a high score, so it gets the lowest score, and that's what this function does, get low score. If your score is greater than the lowest score, or if the number of scores is less than 10, high score is equal to true, and it goes to the high score menu. I'll get to that in a little bit. If it's neither of those, it's else, and game over equals true, and it goes over to the game over screen. And then this is just used to detect how many times you've gone through. If it goes through a certain times, if it goes through the cycle a certain amount of times, it'll change the color and increase the speed by 5. Actually, it decreases the time that the program waits, but same thing. Now for the stat, that's all very complicated way that I had it outputting, because if you would notice, go ahead and run this. If you would notice, when I have the score outputted, I have dots and dots like that, and then I have dots, more dots, and then the score. Everything's lined up with this, and everything right here is lined up with that. That was actually very difficult to do. I don't know why, but it was. And then this is, just another menu to detect whether or not you did delete score, main menu, clear all scores, and that's what all this does. When you delete scores, it just goes to that number that you inputted, because you see in a number, you input a number, and it'll go ahead and insert a space and a 0 at the end of both the scores and the names vector, and then it'll erase the one that you told it to erase. And then it also decreased the number of scores because you deleted one of the scores, so the number of scores go down. After that, this is, the info. It just tells you everything. That's how it opens up the web page. I did not make this up. This is something that I found online. I don't know exactly what all this does. I know that this launches the default web browser, and that's the web page, and that opens it, obviously. But other than that, I'm not too sure how that works. And this is just saying certain things are true, certain things are false. That's how it goes to different menus. When you go to a high score, again, it's under the menus.h thing, and this is the high scores right here. That's just the ASCII art. That's really all it's doing. And then you enter in your score, enter in your name, and that's how it saves it and all that. It detects where it's supposed to go. It goes through each one. Very simple, but yet complicated. When the game over is true, it goes to here. Game over, again, just another menu. Works the same way that the main menu did. And then when you save it, it saves the scores, which just outputs it to a DAT file, and then it goes ahead and just does this fancy little thing that you have right here. Let me go ahead and show you. So when you quit, it does that little fancy thing right there. It just looks cool. It really doesn't do anything. All I really needed was this line, but I want to make it look cool, so I did that. And that's pretty much how it works. It's very difficult for me to explain everything to you guys. And I tried my best, but I'm sure that, it's very complicated stuff if you don't really know exactly how everything works in C++. But again, the source code and all that is available for download. So if you want to look at it, if you want to improve it, by all means, go ahead, improve it, edit it, do whatever you want with it, use parts from it. I don't care. I mean, I just made it for fun. It's really nothing too serious. So, but that's pretty much it. I want to thank you for watching. I hope you have enjoyed. I spent a lot of time on this program. It's one of the few programs that I was actually very excited to work on. I actually tried to make it very efficient. I tried to make it shorter. I'd actually finished it a while before, and I completely rewrote it to make it more efficient and shorter code and uh, uh, a lower number of lines that it uses and all that. So I think overall it was very successful. When I first wrote this program, this main source code right here, the main file, linefield.cpp, was around 650 lines. And I took that, I rewrote a whole bunch of parts of it, and now it's only 352 lines. So very happy about that. And yeah, so go ahead, tell me what you think in the comments and all that fun stuff. Have fun playing it, and that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.